Good afternoon. My name is Davida Ingram, and I'm looking forward to sharing my presentation with you today. I am going to open it up, hit present mode, and get started. This is dedicated to the Indigenous, Black, Latinx, Pacific Islander, and Asian organizers who helped to remove Donald Trump from office and the generations to come. This is a story within a story within a story. My family has lived for nearly 2 centuries in Arkansas and Mississippi in the Black Belt of the US South. My people on my mother's side are Tomlins, as you can see here, and Weavers. These are pictures of my mother's parents, Waverly Weaver and Idella Weaver, nee Tomlin. This is my mother, Della Mae Weaver. She is the youngest of Idella and Waverly's 8 children. She was born in 1947 in Palestine, Arkansas. I didn't know when I was a little girl visiting my grandparents' farm during summers with my family that another Palestine existed too. Like Palestinians, Black people in the South were bombed, pushed aside, othered. But Mama's Palestine was also a Black enclave that her family had helped to found. She went to the Weaver School, shopped at the Weaver store, and our ancestors are to this day buried in the Weaver Cemetery, which I'll share more about in a bit. This year, the day after my birthday, my mom sent out an email asking my sisters and me if we could post a GoFundMe on social media sites. Now, this was curious. Typically, Mama wants nothing to do with Facebook. Now, she might send a little money via the Green Cash app, as she says, but she's particular about her technology. Earlier, as COVID struck, I watched her download the internet. She was teaching online using Zoom. Then I watched her don personal protective gear to go teach Black children on the south side of Chicago. At the time, COVID had killed 1 in 1,000 Black people, many of them elders. I felt scared when Mama sent me this picture saying she was headed into work. After all, I'm still teleworking. But she reassured us that she was covered in the blood, if you get me. But I kept looking at this photo. Eventually, it dawned on me, wow, this is the opposite of the Handmaid's Tale. This is what a 21st century freedom fighter really looks like, a Black master teacher. Back to Mama's email. As the pandemic raged on, she received notice that she was to pay a court-awarded settlement to the white squatters who had blocked the entrance to our family's ancestral cemetery. They had been squatting there since 1992 when my grandfather died. Sharing online helped though. We eventually raised over $9,300 to pay off the squatters. In a campaign update, my mom shared this historical footnote. Under Jim Crow segregation, Black Americans were separate from mainstream society, even in death, not just in the southern states. Some families buried their loved ones on their land. Some Black communities had cemeteries for their members. Our family cemetery is just one of many that existed to provide a resting place for relatives that could not be interred anywhere else. I'm going to pause. The profundity of what my mom shared still shakes me. I'm a spiritual person. I do believe in ancestral knowledge. Shit, I even do equity trainings, which, to be honest, equity sometimes mainly translates to me as a kind of Caucasian pigeon that roughly translates to liberation. But I digress. Most of all, though, I am my mother's daughter. Her face, This is her as a little girl, is my face. She is my lineage, and I am her legacy. Her quiet observation that Black Americans were separate from mainstream society, even in death, was something that felt important to share with you today because the US continues to want to paint Blackness as a form of social death. This magnified, of course, in the national uprisings after George Floyd's murder. But in this quiet fact about my family's experience, I see for myself how real racism is and how tangible it has been in my own life. My own mother has not been able to clean both of her parents' graves for 48 years, well over half my life. I've spent part of the pandemic observing how whiteness haunts Blackness, as the scholar Avery Gordon might say. It sits like a squatter transgressing at the shrine of Black ancestral memory. I leave it forfeit so I can hear my ancestors calling. This story has a part two. Ancestors can speak to us across the veil of death, you know. They can show us both what it is to live and conversely, the faces of evil. Rescuing our family's cemetery is not the only time my ancestors came a knocking during the COVID pandemic. I come from a matriarchal clan. However, over the years, when I sought spiritual advising, I would often be told there was a paternal ancestor who wanted to speak to me. Now, I would not say that I am Ingram only in name, but I had heard that my father's people were light skinned, mixed race Black people who did not associate with their darker kin. Perhaps because of that, the Ingrams were primarily a footnote to me. So imagine my surprise when I received this picture of my grandfather. He's the little boy to the left. He's sitting with his parents, who are my great grandparents. Now, I had always imagined that the fair skinnedness of the Ingrams came from white rapists during slavery. Yet here this white man sat plain as day next to my great grandmother, Elizabeth Ingram. They are clearly a family. The baby that my great grandmother is holding is my great uncle Ray. I had heard about him. He was blonde haired and blue eyed. I am told he moved north to Michigan and that he asked his brothers not to follow him. He was passing for white. Ray never had children, but when I look at white people, perhaps particularly when they are acting racist, I see them as kin who have perhaps foolishly forgotten who they are. During COVID times, twice I've heard my ancestors say to me that they will open a way to proper remembrance. My mother's kin showed me their Black glory, opening a path to reconnection and reparations. In my father's bloodlines, I was reminded that whiteness is also a part of me, a portion that remains to be recontextualized and rematriated. A quick side note. My white looking great grandfather told my father he was too dark to be an Ingram. This is my dad going to prom. Because she knew my father's side of the family from Arkansas, my mother explained to me that Dan Sr. was indeed Black, at least societally. This is how the one drop rule worked, or rather, the puerile standards of whiteness. Though my great grandfather internalized white supremacy, he could also never really fully access it. His grandson eventually sired me. I like to think my great grandfather broke through the color line in ancestral realms to catch my eye. We both seem to say, "Look at me, I'm still part of you." Dead people, ways, and things are not to be feared, but rather understood. Now, to take this story even further, my ancestors' bones rest on indigenous lands where still more ancestors are buried who deserve recognition and veneration. This is not lost on me, and it is part of a deeper spiritual education that I believe is necessary because liberation without love is dead, just like faith without good works. Thank you.